wanted to start this conversation like from the very kernels of the beginning of like a film career, I guess, for both of you, because you both studied at the American Film Institute for different things, so for directing and for cinematography. But I was wondering, because both of you, like Antoneta, you, I believe, started with the idea of becoming a journalist, and Sevdije, according to your bio, you wanted to go into medicine. So I was wondering, like, how did both of you decide to kind of shift gear into filmmaking, considering that the original plan seemed pretty different? Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I can start. We both, wanted to be actually doctors. So we were both going to medical high school.
We lost you.
And yeah, it was a reputable profession. Hello?
We lost you there for a second, Antoneta.
Me?
I think
You
you're
lost
back.
Me?
Okay, you're back. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we wanted to be doctors. That was something that had the profession had a reputation. We were both good students. So we were going to medical high school, but yeah, I think that after the war and with what happened with our family, for me personally, because I was in fourth year of high school, I didn't really have any more motivation to become a doctor. We did both work in the hospital, volunteer for 2 months right after the war, and we were treating a lot of actually wounded people, and that was like really helped us a lot. But so we ended up working for this organization, Balkan Sunflowers, that was social projects like cleanups and art projects with kids, and they had a filmmaker come from New York that wanted to train us, and that's how it started. And it was actually Sevdije was the first one. She worked in this documentary that ended up going to Sundance. She can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah,
she can continue.
It actually was not a plan to get into filmmaking, to be honest. Yeah, I want to become a doctor, gynecologist. It was the only actually role model as a woman growing up. The only like profession was either a doctor or a teacher. That's like, at least if some women were doing something, those were the only ones that I saw. But after the war, then because of, as Neta mentioned, we were part of this Balkan Sunflowers group, and they did a video project. And this, I met the director, and we had a conversation about the time during the war, and I told him the story, and he really insisted I should be part of this group. And at first, I didn't want to do it because I was like, "What film? Me? Like, I had a camera. Like, I never really like was into that." He was like, "Oh, you should come and be." And then I think Neta and Casey also pushed me because we were actually all working together. Then I joined the group, and we had to tell this video diary where you're just sitting yourself with a camera. And I told the story of the war and about what happened with losing my mother and sister, and that felt really powerful. I was like, wow, we can tell our story. And then that film went to Sundance, and I traveled out of Kosovo for the first time. I was 16, right after the war, and that was going
so exciting.
Sundance. I didn't know what Sundance was, I admit. I know now very well because it's actually 10 years later. I went back there with a Return, which is a short film that I shot, and then I knew a lot better what Sundance was. But like that, going there and screening the film to the audience and people hearing about the story and what happened, it felt really powerful. And then and since then I just kept working on film, and it felt like this was something, and film more specifically also in cinematography. I kind of from the beginning knew that I really enjoyed being out and shooting stuff, not as much like the directing, editing, and all the other part of it.
I mean, that's awesome that you also both like ended up at the same school. Like me and Hana as sisters, we have like a 6-year gap, so we never were able to like go to a school together or like hang out with the same people. So I don't know, like, was it cool to like have, I guess, like that support around to like be there?
Kind of, because of the
they did.
We did first. Actually, me and Casey were in the same year at AFI, It's Neta's husband,
Yeah.
my brother-in-law, my brother, but it's like he's part of the family, so I talk like
Of course.
everybody knows Casey. But we were the first ones to be that went to AFI, and then Neta did after us. She did the directing workshop for women, which is also
I had done a master's in journalism communication, and so at the AFI I was accepted as part of this year program that's directing workshop for women. They choose like 8 women from all around the US, and you're supposed to have a film. I had done only documentaries actually, and I came to Kosovo and shot a short just to show, like, because you're supposed to show some work that you've done that's fiction. And it was really incredible experience, and it was great to work with Sevdije as a DP. We had always worked together, but to have that support already, you know, from AFI, and a really good program, and I've learned a lot through it, you know.
Neta, you might, I just think your phone, if you're connected to Wi-Fi or to your cellular, because you're stopping.
Maybe I should take them off.
Or it's internet connection. I don't know, but sometimes it's stopping.
Yeah, no, we noticed it too. Try speaking something up. We lost your video.
Damn. I don't think it was the headphones. It's more about the internet connection.
Internet connection, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Maybe it was the headphones. We'll see.
So if I could jump in, if that's okay, Noor. I mean, I think Antoneta and Sevdije, you guys started your careers at a very interesting time in Kosovo's filmmaking history, because now there's, I think, a very well-developed film industry, and we've shown our capacity to produce award-winning films. But when you guys started, it was still fresh after the war. Everything, you kind of had to do everything yourselves. So I am wondering for you guys, what were, Sevdije and Antoneta, you talked about this, but in that specific time, what were some of the challenges in starting a film career in Kosovo in that time, in those circumstances?
Yeah, so for me, we can both have a little different experiences, but we started our first documentary. We were kind of just learning. We had a short training, and then we were just kind of learning while we were making. And it was activism film. We were really into, felt like we wanted to deal with themes, you know, no one was talking about, and, you know, in the mainstream media, and wanted to have a deeper, like, kind of understanding of what's happening. A lot was connected to gender, actually. So it was challenging, but we were a small team. I mean, in terms of the documentary films we were doing, we would like apply for funds at different NGOs, and then our dream was to screen it at RTK, you know, and we had small cameras. And I was for a very long time involved only in documentary until I moved to the US, actually. So in that sense, it was, we were really learning by making them, and we were getting better and better, and I felt like I had a way to actually make them happen. It didn't feel it was too challenging. Of course, the funds were very small, but somehow we were able to get funds to make them. So, but later on, you know, I mean, now it's really exciting to be a part of that growing industry, and all the people we know, and all these women and young directors too, and male as well, you know, but especially women. We're all making our first features, and it's all pretty new, and it's exciting time because it does feel like it's a new wave of films, and that feels kind of more empowering, you know, that it's not just one individual, but it's actually a whole wave of like new filmmaking. So yeah,
and it happened so quickly in a short amount of time.
But Sevdije was more like, she can talk a little bit because she was more involved with fiction early on, and she's done more projects. So I was doing documentaries for a very long time. So she can talk about that part.
It's somehow, I mean, the first project I talk about, that documentary film, it was in Peja. So we were still in Peja because we come from Peja region. And then pretty quickly I moved to Pristina, and to be honest, there's no film school in Kosovo for cinematography. It's only for directing and screenwriting. Still, they don't have. So I started studying photography. It was a private school, and started doing that. And then somehow just I got to meet and know more people from the film community, and then got involved with like shooting short films with there was a 9/11 Film Festival, which was this festival that was supporting short films, making so I started shooting them, and I also was the first woman cinematographer there. So kind of like, you know, it was just this thing of people getting introduced and like, did she really do it? And I didn't think a lot about it, but it was something that was present. So I started shooting shorts, and we were making documentaries, but it was all just doing it and learning from my mistakes. I mean, I was watching some movies and stuff, but like I really didn't know. And then I got to the point after working with different projects that it was like, I really want to learn more. So like I was in Pristina working for about like 7 years, I think. Then I was like, I really need to study more because I want to get to the different level where I think about storytelling and filmmaking differently. And I need some tools. I need to learn from people. That's when I applied to AFI. And it was the only school I applied to because they actually have a really good cinematography department. And because a lot of film schools are very general where you learn everything. And I knew specifically I wanted cinematography. I applied to AFI, I got in, took a lot of loans, moved to LA.
So for you guys, your journeys were similar, but also pretty different. Like you chose different paths in the film world. How did you find your own storytelling voice, your own style?
When I started with documentary film, I remember my first documentary had actually some fictional parts in it, and it had some experimental. So I was, I think, from early on really interested to explore the cinema a little bit more, you know, and not just do the regular, you know. I was interested in this unknown, you know, and kind of mystery in some ways, you know. It was always kind of like trying. It was very, I thought we were trying to be edgy, not edgy, but really like push a little bit, you know. And those first, I would say the first documentaries, I look at it now and I could see, you know, where my style, where it was beginning to emerge, you know, but it was also very much more activist film. You know, we had a very strong, it was persuasive films, even though they were really exploring real things, but it was like we had something really clear in mind what we wanted the message to be, you know. And I think I evolved from that, you know, the more I learned about filmmaking and just being more subtle, you know, and not trying to push it on people's face, you know, I think. And then with fiction, I actually never thought I wanted to do fiction. I was, even though I was doing some scenes, even in documentaries that were a little bit fictional, like I thought it was too repetitive, you know, it's too like, it's long days, you know, I like being with people, I like to deal with current events, you know, and like meet people and kind of. But once I was at AFI, like actually it was Sevdije's project, she had this 4-minute visual essay and she really wanted me to direct. And I was like, no, I don't want to do fiction. But then she got me in and I really felt like how I could expand kind of and explore a part of me, a part of creating that, you know, I wasn't able to do a documentary because you're relying on other people. Whereas with fiction, you're able, and I really enjoyed the process, and that's then I continued, you know, on that. But yeah, I think, and in terms of, you know, a lot of people ask what it was like to make films as a woman, you know, because you see ZANA, you know, Kosovo, it still has this really high contrast, you know, and it is hard as a woman, you know, it's hard now in Hollywood and everywhere, you know, we're still, but somehow when I started, we had our own like small crew. And we weren't relying so much on other bigger structures. So we were able to like do, and I know people saw us. I remember even setting up these interviews with big politicians, but they didn't really take me seriously. But that was actually an advantage for me, you know, because I was able to do the work I wanted to do but we didn't really pay attention to it. But somehow it wasn't really like stopping us, you know.
And it sounds like for you, the transition from this very true to life documentary style of making films and telling stories, Sevdije was the one who got you to work on a visual essay.
Yeah, yeah.
Do some more fiction stuff. So Sevdije, I'm really curious to hear about your journey and how you found your voice and your style.
To be honest, I don't think I have a style of work. I think for me it's more about the stories that I find interesting to be told. And as a cinematographer, film is a visual storytelling. So for me, it's really finding, because I've worked in so many different projects, it's really finding what that specific project needs to be told the best way possible. So I learned through experience in life that when you emerge in something, you just and also my education, that's really biggest part of my job is to tell that story. So I get attracted by stories, and a lot of it has to do human stories that we need to be told, stories that have actually people that have not had a voice, and a lot of my films, as you can see, are that I've worked on projects it's a range of different kind of topics. So to me, that's what really matters, is something that we are able to bring an experience to the screen and for the audience to experience that. And I find that very, very interesting, and it's difficult too, because every project is very different. Every day of shooting is very different. So you have to find that creatively how to tell that the best way.
I would just add, as a director, because I've worked with Sevdije, she actually does have, I feel like her work, she does have a style that I feel like it really stands out. I can feel in all the films, even though of course every film she is very realist, like her shots feel like you're there, and she has this connection with actors, and the way she's films them is so intimate, like somehow as if she's invisible, and as a camera, as a DP, she really has that power to create something that feels very realistic, like you're there as a documentary, but also then she's able to create this really cinematic and just beautiful like pictures, So I would say, I don't know, I think she does have a style, but of course, with every film, it's what the story needs, but just added that.
Of course, it's hard to judge your own work too, I think it's hard to take a step back and actually acknowledge what other people see as like special in your work. And often I think where you sort of do start to see threads is if you look back at your old work. Even like I went to film school, I'm not like an active filmmaker, but I still have film content I've made, and like even in that like 4-year time span, like you can see clear like development in like ability, which is of course the value of going to school and actually learning those technical things. But then you also can see things that kind of stuck with you. Like Sevdije's style is very like immediate and there. And I think that feeling always persists in the film. And of course it changes with each project because you're required to do different things, but like the spirit remains,
I think what's important in the story, it is the spirit actually that it's like, I say all the time, my job, it's not to create beautiful images. And sometimes they're beautiful because it's just what it is. it's just what it needs, you can say it's beautiful, but that's what was needed in that moment. But I feel like it is really about being present and understanding what the character is going through and trying to bring that to the audience. That's for me what is really important. And that maybe is the style itself.
It's a style, of course it's a style. We'll make it a style.
And it is also, I think, our experience with documentary films, I really feel like we carry that on, and I think that was informs a lot of our choices, because we didn't start right off with fiction, we started with documentary. So
also there is something that I feel like I try to do in my work is to really push for the best possible. I know, like I've worked in a lot of films in Kosovo, and I know it's low budget, but I always push and push. And maybe sometimes a lot of other people think I'm tough because I'm always pushing everybody. And I know I've heard it. I've heard that I'm always pushing for it to be the best in every way possible. And that is something, because we have to do that. It's not like, okay, I got a job, I'm shooting a movie, and it is what it is. I know DPs, I know people in general can do that, it's okay. But for me, it's really important to really give more than 100% to the project to make the best possible, because it is important. We are not, it's not life or death making a movie, but it's a privilege to make a movie too. So we have to do the best possible.
No, of course. And it's like you have that one chance to show people that story. So it makes total sense that you want it to be the most well told, like visually, story wise, that you can make it. Because it's not like you can be there for each screening and be like, sorry, this shot was a bit weird, but
we didn't have time, we didn't have budget, we had no time, with this small budget, sorry. And with ZANA, it was a complicated film, and we had a small budget, and we didn't have all the people we wanted to have. We had winter and outdoors, and we didn't have trailers. We didn't have the right, it was so challenging. And then the time, because shooting a film, it's like in the military. Go, now you have a shot. And there's so much, and you really have to, it's really hard because you want to get everything on camera. You want to shoot everything, but then also so you need to really push, and it's great to have Sevdije as someone who's gonna always support me, because you have to fight with producers to actually, no, I need to get this. Because in the end of the day, what matters is what's on screen. No one's gonna care what happened behind the scenes, that your actor got sick for 3 hours, you couldn't shoot, you lost all this time, you couldn't do this because of this. And I think, especially with smaller budgets, I think with every movie, it's always like you're running against all these challenges all the time, because it's a really fast and intense process. But with especially small budgets, it's like, yeah, it's quite tough. So that's what I really appreciate, that Sevdije, and she's done also a lot of features. This was my first one. It was my first one in Kosovo, and it was just great to have her. She knows all the crews, and she knows how to manage there, so that's definitely a plus that you don't necessarily get it, because the cinematographer can just think about their job, not about the overall, and just kind of being a support and pushing for the best everywhere. And she's really great support on set. So
yeah, Hannah's the tough one of our sister duo. She lays down the law.
Balance.
You need one. You need a good cop, bad cop, always.
The balance of yin and yang. And Nora, I think that you wanted to ask a question that I really want to get to about the presence of Kosovo in your creations, in your films. But I'll let Nora ask that question, because I like how she phrased it.
Asks the question. Nora, do it again. Well, no, I mean, it's obvious that Kosovo and being Albania shows up a lot in the work that you do, which makes sense, obviously. But I guess I was curious about what your approach was to telling those stories, and why you think those stories from that cultural background, I guess, are important. Because you could argue that if you're living in the States, you can just work on American productions, American films, tell those stories, make that money, and move on. But it's obvious that you guys time and time again are coming back to something a bit deeper. So I just wanted to know more about how do you choose those stories? How do you approach those stories? And why do you feel they're important to tell and to show on screen?
Yeah, I mean, to me, still art is very personal. It is not just about the profession, about doing something. So for me, I have to connect to a story, and I have to really want to make that and have a question that I'm interested to explore, So for me, it was just natural that for my first feature, I was gonna do it there. And it's a story I've been really incubating for almost 20 years, I think, ZANA. So it's no question whether I'm gonna do it there or there. It's about what's bringing me, and we are from there. such a big part of, I mean, it's still hard for me to consider myself diaspora, you know, that I'm not from Kosovo. I'm from there, and we've been back and forth so much. So I feel like I'm in Kosovo, I'm from here, you know, but it's like you take this specific story from a specific lens, and it has to connect to something that you are connected to, or that you have some insight, you know, and a story that you want to tell. And it is very unique and specific, and because we haven't had so many stories from Kosovo, but it's very personal in that way. It's not like I think, oh, there's not enough stories from Kosovo. It's more of a personal connection, you know. And then so until now, I mean, but next my next film is going to be here, but then I'm probably going to go back and do another one there. So, but somehow, whatever you do, even if I do a film from here, I'm going to bring a part of me. It's still going to be like an Albanian story in some way, you know, but told in English, you know what I mean? I think that we're always bringing that, you know, our unique perspective, you know, into whatever stories we tell. But from Kosovo, it's from Kosovo. It's been really great to be in festivals and to see, like, you know, because it's a new thing, like you said, you know, Toronto, ZANA was the first film there. So there is now more, people are knowing more about films from Kosovo, and it's really nice to be part of that kind of new thing. So I'll always go back there, you know,
it's home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Sevdije, I don't know if you had anything to add to that. I know Hannah had a follow-up question about working on films that are about being Albanian from Kosovo, but...
I mean, I was born Albanian, I'm Albanian. It doesn't, you know, it's, for me, actually after coming to LA and studying here, I did my first feature in LA, which was you know, it's American, it's different. It's a story here, but I went back to work in Kosovo with the first feature that I did was with Tirta, the marriage, because we had connections before. And then I worked called November, Ismet. I worked with Ismet before coming to AFI, and then ZANA with Neta, and then I did the last year movie with Katrina, and I know her from before. So it's relationships with people that I have created throughout my lifetime. So when they're making movies, and I read the projects and I really like them. So that's why I go back, and I feel like, yeah, I'm the first female cinematographer from Kosovo, woman, and I'm from Kosovo, so I like investing as much as I can for the Kosovo film industry and do everything I can to contribute to it. Because to be honest, I'm in LA and it's great. I get to meet people that they're meeting somebody for the first time from Kosovo, especially cinematographer, because you know, and it's a woman, which is also important. So yeah, I mean, I live here, I work here, I do a lot of different projects here, but whenever there is the project that I like, I'll go back, you know, and if I can, I will go back and work there and contribute as much as possible, because that's where we come from. It's part of our DNA.
So I would like to ask a follow-up to that. If you hear my cat, I'm sorry. I really can't. I can't get you to be quiet. I'm sorry. I wanted to ask a follow-up question about the role that memory plays in the stories that you tell. And I know that ZANA is a work of fiction, but it does draw very much on your personal history, on your family history. And you have the unique opportunity of being two sisters working on a story that draws from personal history. And I'm curious about, what was that process like for you in coming up with the story? Did you find conflicting memory, or did you find that Sevdije forgot something and Antoneta filled in the blanks? I'm curious to hear about how you being sisters, what did that do for the story?
Yeah, I mean, ZANA draws on memory, but it's fictional. I think a lot of the issues that we were exploring were from real things, you know? but then it's kind of put in a fictional way, you know. But I would say almost every scene is really real in some way, because it is taken from our own experiences or the stuff that I've filmed or that I've heard of, or, but so in that sense, it's that's always going to be, I mean, it's an important thing to do, you know, to draw. For me, like exploring the questions and conflicts and that have affected my life are something that I'm always going to be interested to do, you know, as an artist. Like I want to deal with the questions I have about my role, about our human condition, you know, and about our cultures. And I try really all these questions, not all, I mean, it's one question, but it's like the small and the big, you know, and it's like local, but then it's universal. So I try in that sense, you were talking about, oh, doing a film here, you know, and there. So I really try to bring that universal aspect of it, but then being a very specific local story. But in terms of two of us, yeah, I'm trying to think, it was just really amazing because I was writing the script, Casey was the co-writer, and to have Sevdi like read the drafts and then she would give me notes and like bring it. But she has this understanding, you know, also that made it somehow, like I think if I was working with, it would have been much harder to actually bring it to where it is, you know, to bring it out in the way, because she had already that experience, you know. I'm not sure I answered your question, but
you did. No, it's a complicated question. Like Sevdije, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
I mean, with ZANA especially, I mean, it's a story that we knew, like when Etta said the idea of the story, like it's something every time I read the script, I understood the story really well. I know what is happening because we, like in some way, this is fictional, but also it comes out of our culture and tradition and stuff. So I understood it really well. So for me, it was like, I understand the story, and my notes were just more like things that I felt could evolve or something that could be changed, or like actually when we were shooting the movie itself, it's more about also figuring out what is the best way to tell it, because some things are higher budget than it actually you can do it, so visually how it can be maybe told in a way. But I always, every draft of the script I read, I understood it, you know, and it was something very familiar. And so creating the scenes and the stuff and the feeling, it was very familiar.
Well, the character of Dume feels familiar. Dume in the film ZANA feels like a fully three-dimensional person. And there is the problem in film of women being stereotyped either as love interests, romantic interests, or as mothers. And with Dume, like, yes, she is a mother, she is also a wife, but she's also so much more than that. And I would like to hear maybe just your response on why characters like Dume are important.
I mean, they're important because until now, usually what you're talking about stereotypical, usually you have, oh, the victim, or she's the wife, or she's the hero, you know, and now there's this tendency to create these heroes in the sense of what we think in the mainstream are heroes, you know. And I really wanted to tell a story of a woman that is complex, because we're heroes. We can be very active, outgoing, and then ongoing. We can be aggressive, and then we can have all these qualities. And I really wanted to talk about the complex, you know, nature of our personalities, and the ways in which even in situations where our freedoms are really limited, we still can be active. Yeah, we still have a voice, you know, and we found ways to like be rebels, you know. And I wanted to acknowledge that, and I wanted to bring that out, you know, that it's not just this, that, and that, but it's all of this, and it's multidimensional. And I think that's what, because it's easy, you could say, oh, she's passive. And of course, that was one of my, because I personally I tend to like more people who talk less, you know. That's a personal preference, you know. I don't like a lot of dialogue. And I like the visuals more, you know, I like to tell stories through images, but I like less. But so easy you could, you know, so I had to really work on the script to create a balance, you know, on how we tell these stories of subversive characters or rebellious characters, you know. And I think, honestly, I really think it's important to acknowledge that and to value it, because it's like this thing, like our mothers, our sisters, aunts, they all found a way to like make things a little better, you know. And I feel like I want to tell those stories. I don't want to just say, oh, and you know, so much of the world is still in the position where Luma are, and we are in other ways, are limited, our freedoms are limited. So you can actually put the story, I know that the circumstances are very unique, you know, with Lume, but then you can be in the other relationship or in another country where you are kind of put against the edge, you know, so you can actually relate to her, you know. And in some way, but also the transcending also gender, you know. I mean, I try to do that, you know, even though Luma is yeah. But anyways.
Well, sorry to interrupt. We have around like 10 to 15 minutes left, and I know Antoneta has a hard out, so it's a very oh my God, sorry, I'm near noisy cars all the time. So the conversation, of course, could go on, but I did see we got some questions in the chat. So let's just pull those up and see where we can begin. Okay. All right. So question, let's say from Jan Bobby. Jan, would you want to ask your own question? Hannah, would you want to?
He is muted, so he can't.
Sure. Wait,
no, he's there.
Oh, okay, great.
Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for ZANA. It was the first time I got to see an Albanian language movie at a film theater. And that was a very, not just the subject of the story, but it was just very emotional to be able to watch it at TIFF. So thank you for that. And my question was if you had any difficulties in getting ZANA screened and competing in festivals outside of the Balkans or Europe in general, and why you think this is.
Actually, ZANA premiered in Toronto, so that is not Balkans or Europe. So it was the first festival it went to. It was in Toronto, which is actually one of the biggest film festivals, and it has screened in festivals all around. So yeah.
So you felt
no,
like
I think we've had a really good festival run, and we've had, but you know, also it's beautiful and heavy story, and you know, like exactly what I was talking about earlier, like the complexity of, you know, of the character and stuff, you know, and the idea, oh, if you had a really, really like empowering, amazing ending, you know, maybe it would have done better in a certain circles, you know, commercially, but I really feel like it really got the audience that it deserved. You know, it's been doing really well in festivals, and I'm pretty happy with that. You know, and we're gonna see now once it's gonna screen on once we're gonna have a virtual. I mean, it was the COVID that kind of like you know, stopped a lot of things, but it's still going.
But it did have virtual screenings also in US region, which was supposed to be in cinemas, but because of COVID, it was virtual. So it was virtually released in US, which would be like cinemas in normal times. But soon it will be on all VOD as well. So.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting to think that sometimes films are very like boxed into kind of whatever region they're from. So you'll only see certain films from the Balkans if you actually go to the Balkans, or you'll only see certain films from like South Asia if you go to South Asia. So it's been incredible to see how much people have loved this film across the board, and pretty exciting too. I can imagine, because you never quite know what will happen once you release it into the world. So it's been great to see that. Let's see some other questions. Borana, I think you had a question or two. Do you want to ask them?
I am here. I had two questions, but I'll only ask one of them. So Sevdije, you mentioned a little bit earlier about, you know, working with all of these Albanian film, like this kind of crew that is developed. And I know that we've noticed, I'm sure all of AFA can agree that we've, you know, from watching a lot of your films and getting familiar with your work, we kind of see the same faces pop up. So, you know, we've kind of noticed this group of Albanian filmmakers and actors that kind of pop up in these different projects, like Alban Ukaj or Adriana Matoshi, and all these kind of, to us, we've become big fans of them. And I'm just curious to know, like, how you all got to know each other, and there's this like Kosovo star system building, and what does it look like to work with so closely with people that, you know, I know when I was at TIFF, I was a bit starstruck, but it seems like you're all quite close friends. And I'm just wondering how that affects your films and how these relationships form and how that intimacy maybe like translates to how powerful the films are.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I go through my films, and almost in every one of them, Adriana is part of it. I know her really well. I know how she looks. I know the best way to photograph her also.
I'm a huge fan of hers. I was
She's
absolutely
great.
struck at TIFF when I saw her, because I'm a big fan of hers.
She's great, and that's the reason why she's in all these films, because she's a really good actress. And I mean, I've known her like long time ago. I actually did like a 2004 or something like that. I took her first photos, some photos, black and white of her, and I was like, wow, that face. And I know she was like at that time also doing theater. I was like, you have to be in movies, because, you know, like when you look at her like a person, and when she's on camera, she's very different.
Yeah.
And then with I mean, the Kosovo, it's a small place, and there is some, but because even though it's a small place, there's really great talent there. And we've been able, it's lucky, we've been able to work with best of, you know, some of the best that are in the film industry, and actors and actresses and stuff. So like Alban, and then Astrid in ZANA, and then it's just, you know, like all these really great actors and people that we get to work with there. It's really amazing. It's like being in Hollywood and get to work with the stars here is the same working with them. It's really good. I think they're in the same level with all the stars in LA, or even maybe better, because they are really good.
Better, of course, better. Let me just throw in a final question. So Irena or Irene, are you still around to ask your question?
Yes, she is. I'll ask her to unmute.
Okay.
I hope I'm not putting you on the spot.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I was just wondering, you know, because I try to watch all the Albanian Kosovar films when it comes out, and I'm just wondering, how can we get a little bit more in the loop? And, you know, I'm excited to see ZANA, the film, when it's available. I guess I missed my chance. But yeah, so how can we kind of keep more up to date?
I think with ZANA, I think it's still playing at virtual cinemas in the US, but we're soon gonna have, sometime in December, it's gonna be released Amazon and iTunes, and we will, if you follow ZANA's page, that's where we give updates. But that's how you would get the information for ZANA. You know, I know there's not some sort of way where you can watch all Albanian films. You know, I don't know. There should be. I mean, we should have all these, like Albanian Association and all these, like somehow connected. So there's a way we can all be like. But in terms of ZANA, we will be notifying everyone, you know, once it comes out, you know, because right now it's still in festival run, and it was in virtual cinema. I think it still is in a few places, but if you write a message to ZANA, we will let you know, but soon it will be more widely available. So looking forward to that. It's gonna be near,
yeah, and you're also,
the marriage is on Amazon Prime,
yeah,
and iTunes. Can be watched there. I think there is also this Giraffa, maybe some films from Kosovo that are part
like
of
short films
platform.
usually.
Short films, but also some documentaries. We have some of our documentaries there as well.
Yeah.
It's also worth checking the website of DokuFest. Like they don't host the films, but that's where you can see the best and the newest stuff coming out.
Yeah, a lot of
There's a recent film fest. Sorry, there was a recent film fest in Kosovo, and they had it all virtual. So I forgot the name of it, just off the top of my head. But
DokuFest just ended.
I think it might have been that one. Yeah, and they had it online, which was really cool. So
if that's the one positive thing with COVID is like you can still go to DokuFest if you can't be in DokuFest. So maybe something like that can still remain when we can like return to normal. But yeah, I did really like that they made that available. I think Tirana did something similar as well, if I'm not mistaken.
For Albania, it's usually you have geo-blocked for the country because, you know, that's what festivals do. Just because then you can't show it anywhere else.
I guess so.
And you can I think.
But yeah, I mean, you're also welcome to follow us. We try to keep up as much as possible. We do a lot of the sleuthing for people when we do our own physical events usually. So that's kind of how we got to know you guys too, in a way. We're like trolling film festival pages. We're attending whenever we can. So if you want to follow us, and you can reach out to us whenever, like we're happy to send updates that we're aware of as well. So we've hit 4 o'clock officially. Yeah. I'm going to wrap up questions now and say a big thank you to Antoneta and Sevdije for taking the time to actually do this with us. We really do appreciate it. I know you guys are busy and like it's stressful in general. So thank you once again, and best of luck with ZANA moving forward. Please let us know when people can see it, because we've gotten quite a few requests so far on like all our socials being like, where can we watch it? Where can we watch it? So people want to see it.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of messages just asking us where to see the film. So hopefully it's out soon, and we can let everyone know.
Thank you so much. This was really great conversation, and I'm looking forward to.
We'll see you on the internet. We've had some people in the comments say they've already seen the movie twice. So you have fans here.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for all the questions. I know it's a short time. I have to actually leave right away now.
All right. We will
thank you so
see
much
you on the internet. No problem.
Thank you so much. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye Antoneta. Bye Sevdije.
Bye, Sevdije.
Bye sisters.